Blessed is the one who delights in the law of the Lord.
There is a question that has haunted humanity since the first breath was drawn into human lungs. A question whispered in moments of silence, screamed in moments of despair, and disguised beneath every ambition, every desire, every restless pursuit. What does it mean to truly be happy? Not the fleeting kind of happiness that fades when the night grows quiet. Not the shallow satisfaction that dissolves the moment life resists our plans, but something deeper. Something unshakable. Something eternal. Because if we are honest, truly honest, most of what the world calls happiness feels like smoke slipping through our fingers. We chase it in success, only to find emptiness waiting at the top. We search for it in relationships, only to discover that even love can wound. We pursue it in pleasure, only to wake up feeling more hollow than before. And somewhere, buried beneath the noise of modern life, an ancient voice speaks. A voice that does not shout, but cuts deeper than any noise ever could. It comes from the opening lines of one of the most powerful books ever written, the Book of Psalms. And it begins not with a suggestion, but with a declaration. Blessed is the man. That word, blessed, is often misunderstood. In the original Hebrew, it carries a weight far beyond simple happiness. It speaks of a deep, abiding state of well-being, a life aligned with divine truth, a soul anchored in something eternal. This is not surface-level joy. This is the secret of true happiness. But here's where it becomes unsettling. Because Psalm 1 does not begin by telling us what to do. It begins by telling us what to avoid. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. Do you notice the progression? Walk, stand, sit. At first it seems harmless. You walk alongside ideas. You entertain thoughts. You listen casually. Then you stand. You begin to linger, to consider, to agree. And finally, you sit. You settle. What once felt distant becomes your environment. What once felt wrong becomes normal. What once felt dangerous becomes comfortable. And this is how souls drift away from truth without even realizing it. Psalm 1 is not merely poetry, it is a warning. Because the path to destruction rarely feels like rebellion in the beginning, it feels like curiosity, it feels like freedom, it feels like independence. But slowly, almost invisibly, it reshapes the heart. And here lies the first uncomfortable truth. True happiness cannot coexist with a life rooted in deception. The world will tell you otherwise. It will tell you that happiness comes from following your heart, from rejecting boundaries, from defining your own truth. But Scripture whispers something radically different. It tells us that not all paths lead to life. Some lead to emptiness, some lead to ruin, and some feel right until it's too late. The book of Proverbs echoes this with chilling clarity. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. Proverbs 14:12. So if happiness is not found in simply doing what feels right, then where is it found? Psalm 1 answers this with a shift so powerful it changes everything. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. This is where the secret begins to unfold. True happiness is not found in escape. It is found in alignment, not in rejecting truth, but in delighting in it. And that word, delight, is crucial. Because this is not about obligation. This is not about forced religion or empty ritual. This is about desire, a deep internal transformation where the soul begins to crave what is good, what is pure, what is eternal. But how does that happen? How does a human heart, so easily distracted, so easily corrupted, begin to delight in something as demanding as God's truth? The answer lies in a single phrase: he meditates day and night. Meditation, in the biblical sense, is not passive. It is not emptying the mind. It is filling it, intentionally, persistently, with truth. It is returning to the Word again and again, not as a task, but as a lifeline. Because the reality is this: Whatever fills your mind shapes your soul. If your thoughts are consumed by fear, anxiety will grow. If your mind is fed with lies, confusion will deepen. If your attention is fixed on emptiness, your life will begin to feel empty. But if your mind is anchored in truth, something begins to change. Slowly, quietly, but undeniably. And this is where Psalm 1 introduces one of the most powerful images in all of Scripture. He is like a tree planted by streams of water. Not a tree struggling to survive in dry soil, not a tree dependent on unpredictable rain, but a tree planted, intentionally placed, beside a constant source of life. Do you see the difference? This is not accidental growth. This is rootedness, stability, sustainability. The kind of life that does not collapse when circumstances shift. No, because here's the reality most people don't want to face. Life will bring drought. There will be seasons where prayers feel unanswered, where hope feels distant, where everything seems to wither. And in those moments, superficial happiness will fail. Motivation will fade, distractions will lose their power. And what remains is what your life is rooted in. Psalm 1 paints a picture of a person whose roots go deeper than circumstances, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. This does not mean a life without struggle. It means a life that endures through struggle, a life that continues to bear fruit even when conditions are harsh. And here's where it becomes deeply personal. What are your roots connected to? Because whatever sustains you will define you. If your identity is rooted in success, failure will devastate you. If it's rooted in approval, rejection will crush you. If it's rooted in control, uncertainty will unravel you. But if your life is rooted in God, then even in chaos, there is stability. Even in suffering, there is purpose. Even in silence, there is presence. This is the kind of happiness Psalm 1 speaks of. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of something greater than pain. And yet, there is another side to this passage, a darker side. Because Scripture does not only describe the blessed, it also reveals the fate of those who choose another path. The wicked are not so. Just 4 words. But they carry a weight that cannot be ignored. Because everything described before, stability, fruitfulness, endurance, is now stripped away. They are like chaff that the wind drives away. Chaff, useless, weightless, discarded. In ancient times, chaff was separated from grain during the threshing process. The valuable part, the grain, would fall to the ground. The chaff would be carried away by the wind. It had no substance, no root, no permanence. And this is the contrast. 2 lives, 2 paths, 2 outcomes. One deeply rooted, the other easily blown away. One sustained by truth, the other consumed by illusion. One leading to life, the other to emptiness. And the terrifying part is this. From the outside, they can look very similar. Both may appear successful, both may seem happy, both may function in the same world. But beneath the surface, everything is different, because when the wind comes, only one remains. And the question that lingers, quiet, uncomfortable, unavoidable, is this. Which one are you becoming? Not which one you claim to be, not which one you appear to be, but which one you are, when no one is watching, when life becomes difficult, when everything superficial is stripped away. Because true happiness is not revealed in moments of ease. It is revealed in moments of testing. And Psalm 1 does not leave room for neutrality. There is no middle ground, no third path, only 2 ways, and the deeper you reflect, the more unsettling it becomes. Because it forces you to confront something most people spend their entire lives avoiding, the possibility that what you have been calling happiness may not be happiness at all. It may be distraction. It may be escape. It may be a temporary illusion covering a deeper emptiness. And if that is true, then the invitation of Psalm 1 becomes more than poetic language. It becomes urgent. It becomes personal. It becomes a call to examine your life at its foundation. Not your achievements, not your image, not your outward behavior, but your roots. Because in the end, Happiness is not something you chase, it is something that grows. And growth depends entirely on where you are planted. And as this ancient psalm continues to unfold, it reveals something even more profound, something that will challenge everything you thought you knew about success, about purpose, and about what it truly means to live a life that is blessed. But to see it clearly, you must be willing to confront the path you are currently on, because one leads to life and the other, slowly, quietly, leads somewhere you may not expect. There is a silence that falls over the soul when truth begins to settle in, not the kind of silence that brings comfort, but the kind that confronts you. Because once you see the contrast Psalm 1 presents, you cannot unsee it. Two paths, not 10, not a spectrum, not a blurred gray area where everything blends together. Just two. And that realization alone dismantles one of the greatest illusions of our time. The belief that we can walk somewhere in between, that we can taste truth while still clinging to deception, that we can pursue God while remaining rooted in everything that opposes Him, that we can build a life on shifting ground and still expect it to stand. But Psalm 1 refuses to entertain that illusion. It draws a line, clear, sharp, undeniable. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. There is a moment coming, whether acknowledged or ignored, when everything hidden will be revealed. Every foundation will be tested. Every root will be exposed. And in that moment, appearances will mean nothing. Status will mean nothing. Even the version of yourself you presented to the world will mean nothing. Only truth will remain. And that is where this psalm becomes deeply unsettling, because it forces a question that most people spend their lives avoiding. What will remain of you when everything superficial is stripped away? Jesus himself echoed this truth with sobering clarity. In the Gospel of Matthew, he speaks of two men, both building houses. One builds on rock, the other builds on sand. From the outside, their lives may have looked identical. But then the storm came. The rain fell. The winds blew. And suddenly, the difference became undeniable. The house built on sand collapsed, not gradually, not partially, but completely. And great was its fall. Matthew 7:27. That phrase carries a weight that is hard to ignore, because it reveals something terrifying. It is possible to build an entire life that looks stable, feels secure, appears successful, yet is destined to collapse. And here is the connection that cannot be missed. The difference between those two men was not effort. It was not intelligence. It was not even intention. It was foundation. One heard the words of God and lived by them. The other heard the same words and ignored them. That's it. And suddenly, Psalm 1 becomes even clearer. Because the blessed person is not someone who simply knows truth. It is someone who is rooted in it. Someone who has allowed it to shape their desires, their decisions, their identity. This is why the psalm says, "For the Lord knows the way of the righteous." That word, knows, goes far beyond awareness. It speaks of intimacy, of relationship, of recognition. This is not God observing from a distance. This is God walking with, sustaining, guiding, and establishing. It is the difference between being seen and being known. And in a world obsessed with visibility, with being noticed, validated, and admired, this truth cuts deep, because you can be known by millions and still be unknown by God. And yet you can walk in quiet obedience, unseen by the world, and be fully known by Him. And according to Psalm 1, only one of those paths leads to life, but the way of the wicked will perish. There is no poetic softening here, no attempt to make it more comfortable, just a stark, final reality. Perish, not fade, not weaken, perish. And this is where the weight of the message reaches its peak, because it reveals something most people are not prepared to accept. Not every path leads somewhere meaningful. Some paths lead nowhere, and worse, some paths lead to destruction disguised as fulfillment. You can spend years chasing what feels right. You can build your identity on what the world celebrates. You can surround yourself with noise, success, distraction, and still be walking a path that is quietly unraveling beneath your feet. This is the tragedy Psalm 1 is warning against. Not obvious rebellion, but subtle misdirection. A life that looks alive, but is slowly drifting toward emptiness. And this is why the opening word, blessed, is so powerful. Because it is not describing luck. It is describing alignment, a life that is in sync with the design of its creator, a soul that is not fighting against truth, but resting within it. And this is where the secret of true happiness becomes undeniable. It is not found in having everything you want. It is found in becoming who you were created to be. And those are not the same thing, because you can have everything and still feel empty. But when your life is rooted in God, even in lack, there is fullness. Even in uncertainty, there is peace. Even in suffering, there is meaning. This is what the world cannot offer. Because the world's version of happiness is built on circumstances, and circumstances are fragile. They change, they fail, they disappear. But the happiness described in Psalm 1 is rooted in something eternal. And anything rooted in eternity cannot be shaken by time. But here is where the message turns from revelation to decision, because knowing this changes nothing unless you respond to it. Psalm 1 is not just describing two types of people, it is confronting every person with a choice, and not a distant philosophical choice, a present, daily, deeply personal one. What will shape your life? What will influence your thoughts? What will define your direction? Because whether you realize it or not, you are already walking a path. You are already being formed. The voices you listen to, the ideas you entertain, the habits you build. They are not neutral. They are planting something, and over time, they will produce fruit. The question is not if your life will bear fruit. The question is what kind. Will it be stability or instability? Clarity or confusion? Life or emptiness? Because fruit is inevitable. But the root determines everything. And maybe, right now, you can feel it. That quiet tension, that internal awareness that something is not fully aligned. That despite everything you've achieved, everything you've experienced, there is still a sense that something is missing, that something deeper is calling you, that maybe, just maybe, you've been chasing the wrong definition of happiness all along. And if that's true, then this moment matters more than you think. Because Psalm 1 is not just exposing the problem, it is extending an invitation, not to perfection, but to transformation, not to religion, but to relationship. Not to a life without struggle, but to a life that can withstand it. And the path begins the same way it always has. Not with a dramatic external change, but with a quiet internal decision to turn, to realign, to root your life in something that will not fail. And that decision, though it may feel small, has eternal consequences. Because the difference between the two paths is not always visible in the beginning, but in the end, it is everything. So pause for a moment, not just to listen, but to reflect. What is shaping your life right now? What are you rooted in? And if the answer unsettles you, that's not something to ignore. That's something to respond to. Because true happiness is not out there, waiting to be discovered. It is found when your life is aligned with the one who created it. And that alignment changes everything. If this message spoke to you, if it challenged you, if it made you reflect in a way you didn't expect, take a moment right now. Leave a comment sharing what impacted you the most. Let this not be just another video you watched, but a moment that marked a shift in your life. And if you want more reflections like this, deep, honest, rooted in Scripture, subscribe to the channel Daily Walk with Jesus, because this journey, this path, is not meant to be walked alone. And before you go, leave a like on this video, not just as support, but as a reminder to yourself that today you chose to seek something deeper, something real, something eternal, because in the end, there are only two paths, and now you know where they lead.